This is my ranking of the best PS5 RPGs that I've played, based purely on my personal experience. Each one is placed from masterpiece to trash, depending on how strong the story and combat are, and how engaging the progression feels. Let's get straight into the list. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 tells the story of Expedition 33, a group determined to stop the Paintress, whose yearly countdown wipes out everyone of a certain age. It combines turn-based battles with real-time dodges, parries, timed attacks, unique character abilities, and tactical party building. As I spent more time with it, I became attached to every member of the team because their personal stories carried real weight. The combat kept me alert since every battle asked me to react instead of simply selecting commands. Learning enemy patterns, landing perfect parries, and combining different skills made every victory satisfying. I also loved how the world kept surprising me with strange locations, creative enemies, unforgettable bosses, and music that matched every emotional moment. Even after finishing the adventure, I kept thinking about its characters and ending. This is the rare RPG that reached my highest standard, so it belongs in the masterpiece tier. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth expands the adventure beyond Midgar, mixing action RPG combat with tactical party abilities, materia customization, vast regions to explore, story missions, side activities, and memorable companions facing Sephiroth's growing threat. Then I finally settled into its rhythm and loved how every character played differently. Swapping between Cloud, Tifa, Barret, Aerith, and others kept battles fresh because each had unique strengths and synergy attacks. I spent hours exploring every region, playing minigames, hunting secrets, and upgrading my party without feeling rushed. The emotional moments landed well because I already cared about the cast, and the huge environments made the adventure feel much bigger than I expected. A few optional tasks stretched longer than I wanted, but they never outweighed the excitement of discovering something new. It easily stands in my excellent tier because I would gladly replay it again despite its minor flaws. Metaphor ReFantazio places a rare Elda at the heart of a kingdom-wide race for the throne after the king's death. The adventure combines turn-based combat, archetype class swapping, social bonds, time management, and political conflict while traveling across a rich fantasy realm. As I moved deeper into the adventure, I found myself constantly experimenting with different archetypes because every new class changed how battles played. Mixing inherited skills, exploiting enemy weaknesses, and adjusting my party before major fights kept combat engaging for dozens of hours. I also look forward to spending time with companions, since those conversations added depth to the characters and unlocked even stronger abilities. The fantasy setting felt fresh while still keeping the systems I enjoy from Atlas RPGs. The final chapters stretched a bit longer than I expected, but they never stopped me from wanting to see how everything ended. It easily secures a place in my excellent tier. Elden Ring is an open-world action RPG where players explore the lands between, battling powerful enemies, uncovering hidden regions, and shaping a character through flexible builds, weapons, magic, and challenging combat. Its freedom encourages discovery, while every area hides bosses, dungeons, quests, and valuable rewards that strengthen your journey. I rarely followed the main path because every direction led to something worth finding, whether it was a hidden cave, a powerful weapon, or another unforgettable boss fight. I loved experimenting with different builds and switching weapons whenever I discovered something interesting, knowing almost every option could stay useful until the end. The sense of adventure never faded because each new region looked completely different and rewarded curiosity instead of rushing forward. Even after dozens of hours, I was still finding secrets that completely surprised me. Without question, this belongs in my masterpiece tier. Cyberpunk 2077 sends players into Night City, a futuristic metropolis where mercenary jobs, powerful corporations, and dangerous gangs shape every corner. It combines first-person shooting, character builds, hacking, driving, story choices, and open-world exploration while chasing a way to survive a deadly digital threat. Once I settled into the city, I found it difficult to stop exploring because every district had something interesting waiting around the next street. I enjoyed switching between weapons, quick hacks, and stealth depending on the situation, and the freedom to approach missions in different ways kept gameplay exciting. The main story stayed with me because the characters felt believable, and many side quests were just as memorable as the major ones. The PS5 version also made a huge difference with smooth performance, fast loading, and far fewer technical issues. Looking back, it easily deserves its place in my excellent tier. Kingdom Come: Deliverance II continues Henry's quest for revenge in a historically grounded medieval world where every choice shapes how people respond. It blends realistic sword combat, survival mechanics, skill-based progression, reputation systems, and detailed open-world exploration across 15th century Bohemia. After spending more time with it, I realized this wasn't the kind of RPG that lets me rush through everything. I enjoyed improving Henry naturally because every skill grew through the way I actually played instead of simply spending points. The tactical combat kept me thinking during every duel, and winning difficult fights felt rewarding because timing and patience mattered more than button mashing. I also liked how my decisions changed the way people treated me, making the world feel much more believable. The save system tested my patience a few times, but the depth, freedom, and attention to detail kept bringing me back. It firmly holds its place in my excellent tier. Persona 3 Reload explores the hidden dark hour, where a group of students fights mysterious shadows while balancing everyday school life. It combines turn-based battles, dungeon exploration, persona fusion, social links, and time management, with modern visuals and smoother mechanics refreshing a beloved classic. As I settled into the routine, I enjoyed deciding how to spend each day because every choice shaped both my strength in combat and my relationships outside of it. Building stronger personas, planning dungeon runs, and watching the characters grow closer kept me invested for hours. The updated presentation made familiar scenes much more engaging, and the soundtrack never stopped setting the right mood. I also appreciated the quality of life improvements that removed many of the older frustrations without changing what made the original special. Even with a few slower stretches and careful scheduling throughout the adventure, it remains an RPG I respect a lot, placing it in my great tier. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth is a turn-based RPG that follows Ichiban Kasuga on a search for his missing mother, leading him from Japan to Hawaii, while an emotional story brings Kazuma Kiryu back into the spotlight. Alongside party-based combat, job classes, side activities, and massive city hubs, it constantly offers new distractions beyond the main adventure. I spent just as much time wandering through Honolulu as I did pushing the story forward because there was always another activity, minigame, or side quest waiting around the next corner. The improved combat made every battle more enjoyable, since positioning and different job combinations opened new strategies without forcing endless grinding. I also liked how the story balanced ridiculous humor with surprisingly emotional moments, especially whenever Kiryu's past became part of the journey. The amount of optional content was incredible. Although a few repetitive sections slowed the pacing, it comfortably lands in my great tier. Dragon Quest XI S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition is a classic turn-based JRPG where the Luminary gathers companions to stop a growing darkness across a colorful fantasy kingdom. It combines traditional combat, character progression, exploration, crafting, and a lengthy story while adding extra content, quality of life improvements, and an optional retro-style 2D mode. I quickly settled into its slower pace because every new town had its own personality, memorable characters, and plenty of reasons to look around before moving on. The turn-based battles stayed enjoyable for the entire adventure thanks to different party abilities and steady progression that always rewarded planning. I also appreciated how the world balanced lighthearted moments with emotional scenes without losing its charm. The optional activities and extra features added even more value, although the silent protagonist never connected with me as much as the rest of the cast. It earns a solid place in my great tier. Baldur's Gate 3 is a story-driven RPG based on Dungeons & Dragons, where every decision, conversation, and battle can change how the adventure unfolds. Players build a custom hero, recruit companions with their own stories, solve quests in different ways, and fight tactical turn-based battles across a richly detailed fantasy world. I spent as much time talking to characters as I did fighting because every conversation felt like it could lead somewhere completely unexpected. The freedom to approach quests however I wanted made every play session feel unique, and I was constantly surprised by how the game reacted to choices I never expected it to recognize. Combat took time to fully understand, But once everything clicked, planning each encounter became incredibly satisfying. The learning curve was steep in the beginning, yet the storytelling, companion interactions, and endless possibilities made every hour worthwhile. It easily claims a place in my masterpiece tier. Final Fantasy XVI explores a fractured realm where rival kingdoms depend on magical crystals, and Clive Rossfield is drawn into a conflict that changes everything. It replaces traditional turn-based combat with fast-paced action, cinematic boss fights, character progression, and a darker narrative built around war, sacrifice, and loyalty. I was invested in Clive's story from the beginning, because every major event pushed him to grow while introducing memorable companions who stayed important throughout the adventure. The action combat felt smooth and rewarding, especially once I unlocked more icon abilities and started creating my own attack combinations. The massive boss battles constantly raised the stakes and delivered some of the most spectacular moments I have seen in an RPG. A handful of side quests slowed the momentum, but they never overshadowed the incredible story, soundtrack, and combat. It earns a well-deserved spot in my great tier. Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance is a turn-based JRPG set in a ruined Tokyo where angels, demons, and gods clash for control of the future. Alongside strategic combat and demon recruitment, this edition introduces a brand new story route, additional characters, stronger enemies, and numerous gameplay improvements that expand the original adventure. I enjoyed building my party because recruiting, fusing, and experimenting with different demons constantly opened new strategies for difficult battles. The darker atmosphere stood out from most RPGs I have played, and the choices surrounding morality kept me interested in seeing where the story would lead next. The updated features made exploring much smoother, while the challenging combat stayed rewarding without losing its tactical depth. Some story elements remained difficult to follow at times, but the atmosphere, combat, and improved content made it an easy pick for my excellent tier. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Complete Edition follows Geralt of Rivia as he searches for his adopted daughter while dangerous monsters, political conflicts, and ancient forces threaten the northern kingdoms. This edition includes both major expansions alongside visual upgrades, smoother performance, improved controls, and several gameplay refinements that make the adventure even better on PS5. I found myself getting completely absorbed in the world because nearly every quest, even the optional ones, introduced memorable characters and stories that felt just as important as the main plot. Watching Geralt grow stronger through better gear, new abilities, and careful preparation made every difficult hunt rewarding. The updated performance also made combat feel much smoother, even if some animations still showed their age. Between the unforgettable writing, incredible world building, and countless hours of meaningful content, this easily stands among the greatest RPGs I have ever played. It belongs in my masterpiece tier. Diablo IV throws players into the war between heaven and hell, where the fate of Sanctuary depends on surviving brutal battles, collecting powerful loot, and growing stronger against endless demonic forces. Vessel of Hatred expands that adventure with a new region, the Spiritborn class, mercenaries, and fresh endgame activities that continue the main story. I enjoyed constantly upgrading my build because every new weapon, ability, and piece of gear made clearing huge groups of enemies even more satisfying. The expansion also gave me stronger reasons to keep playing by adding meaningful story content instead of feeling like a small side adventure. I especially liked the Spiritborn class and the return of mercenaries, which made solo play much more enjoyable. The combat remained addictive from beginning to end, and the new content fit naturally into the existing game. It easily earns a place in my excellent tier. Dragon's Dogma 2 builds its adventure around Arisen, a hero chosen to confront a dragon while uncovering political conspiracies and ancient mysteries across a vast fantasy kingdom. The game combines real-time combat, flexible vocations, giant monster encounters, and a unique pawn companion system that creates dynamic adventures through exploration. I rarely traveled from one town to another without something unexpected happening along the way. A simple journey could suddenly become a massive battle against towering monsters, making every trip feel unpredictable and rewarding. I also liked switching vocations, because each class offered a completely different way to approach combat, which kept the experience fresh for dozens of hours. The pawn system remained one of my favorite features, with companions that were genuinely useful throughout the adventure. Performance issues and an uneven story held it back, but the freedom and memorable gameplay still made it worth playing. It settles into my good tier. Fallout 4 begins inside a nuclear wasteland where a lone survivor searches for their missing son while rebuilding a life across the ruins of the Commonwealth. The adventure combines open-world exploration, first-person combat, character progression, crafting, settlement building, and countless optional quests that encourage players to wander off the main path. I spent more time exploring than following the main story because every abandoned building, hidden bunker, or strange location seemed to reward my curiosity with memorable characters, useful loot, or another unexpected quest. The improved performance on PS5 also made combat feel much smoother, especially when using the VAT system during larger battles. While the role-playing choices and dialogue never reached the same level as some other Bethesda games, the addictive exploration and constant sense of discovery kept me coming back for more. It easily earns a place in my excellent tier. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade reimagines the opening chapters of the classic RPG with real-time action combat, strategic command-based abilities, and an expanded story set in the city of Midgar. The PS5 version also includes the episode Intermission expansion, where Yuffie stars in a separate adventure with new mechanics, characters, and battles that connect to the main story. I liked how the combat blended fast action with tactical decisions, because switching between party members and timing abilities kept every major fight engaging. Yuffie's expansion was another highlight, bringing a lighter atmosphere and introducing enjoyable new gameplay ideas that fit naturally into the adventure. Although some sections still moved at a slower pace than I wanted, the stronger visuals, smoother performance, memorable characters, and outstanding soundtrack made returning to Midgar easy to appreciate. It comfortably deserves a place in my excellent tier. Octopath Traveler II brings together 8 heroes, each with their own story, abilities, and goals, across a beautifully designed fantasy world. Turn-based battles revolve around the break and boost systems, while flexible job combinations, day and night mechanics, and character-specific path actions create many different ways to approach combat and exploration. I enjoyed discovering each character's story because they all offer different personalities and memorable moments, making it easy to switch between adventures without getting bored. The combat stayed engaging from beginning to end, since planning attacks around enemy weaknesses always felt rewarding. I also loved the HD 2D presentation with its gorgeous environments, incredible lighting, and fantastic soundtrack that constantly stood out during every chapter. Although the separate stories never connected as much as I hoped, the outstanding gameplay and presentation easily kept me invested for dozens of hours. It deserves a place in my great tier. Tales of Arise follows a resistance movement fighting to free 2 divided worlds from years of oppression, combining fast-paced action combat, character progression, and large fantasy regions filled with dangerous enemies and powerful rulers. As the adventure unfolds, each new region expands the conflict while introducing fresh allies, abilities, and challenges. I quickly became invested in the characters because their relationships developed naturally as the adventure continued. Every new party member added fresh combat options, and switching between different fighting styles kept battles exciting throughout the journey. I also appreciated how each region had its own identity, making exploration and story progression feel consistently rewarding instead of repetitive. A few late-game sections slowed the pacing, but the memorable cast, satisfying combat, and beautiful presentation made the adventure easy to stick with until the end. It comfortably lands in my great tier. Unicorn Overlord follows the exiled Prince Elaine as he builds an army to reclaim his kingdom through large-scale tactical battles across a vast fantasy continent. Instead of traditional turn-based combat, battles unfold in real time, with customizable squads, strategic positioning, and countless class combinations shaping every encounter. I really liked how much freedom the game gave me to approach battles in different ways, because experimenting with squad formations and character abilities often led to better strategies than simply relying on stronger units. Exploring the world also stayed rewarding, with optional battles, new recruits, and hidden objectives constantly encouraging me to push into new regions. The beautiful hand-drawn visuals and excellent soundtrack made every location memorable, while the large cast offered plenty of enjoyable interactions outside of combat. Its complex mechanics can feel overwhelming at first, but once everything clicked, it easily secured its place in my excellent tier. Star Ocean, the second story R, blends science fiction and fantasy as two protagonists travel across different worlds, building a party while uncovering a larger threat through real-time action combat and character-driven storytelling. The remake refreshes the classic adventure with HD 2D visuals, enhanced battles, expanded mechanics, and optional private actions that strengthen relationships and influence multiple endings. I liked how every party member brought something different to combat, and swapping between characters during battles kept encounters fast and engaging. The private actions also gave me a reason to revisit towns because they added more personality to the cast and made my choices feel worthwhile. The gorgeous visuals and remix soundtrack made returning to this classic even more enjoyable, while the deep skill system offered plenty of ways to customize my adventure. It easily earns a place in my excellent tier. Visions of Mana follows Val and a group of elemental alms on a pilgrimage to the Mana Tree, where they must protect the world's flow of mana while uncovering the truth behind their sacred mission. Fast-paced action combat, interchangeable elemental classes, exploration, and party customization shape the adventure across a colorful fantasy world filled with secrets and optional quests. I enjoyed how easy it was to switch between different characters and experiment with combat styles, even though I ended up sticking with the setup that suited me best for most of the game. Exploring new regions was always rewarding because there were hidden paths, side quests, and useful upgrades waiting almost everywhere I looked. The story became much stronger as it progressed, but some gameplay systems felt more limited than they first appeared. Even so, the fun combat and charming world earn it a spot in my good tier. That wraps up my ranking of the best PS5 RPGs I've played. If there's an RPG you think deserves a place on this list, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.